fixed in prison, where an Irish rebel lay. By his side a priest was standing, ere his soul should pass away. And he faintly murmured, "Father," as he clasped him by the hand, "tell me this before I leave you, will my soul pass through Ireland?" 'Twas for loving dear old Ireland, in this prison cell I lie. 'Twas for loving dear old Ireland, in this foreign land I'll die. Will you meet my little daughter? Will you make her understand? Tell me this before I leave you, shall my soul pass through Ireland? Then 61 years later, in the hedge-block's dreary cells, died another 10 brave soldiers, each a hero through and through. For time does not change the hunger for an Ireland that is free of the bondage that enslaves us from across the Irish Sea.
It's not those who can inflict the most, but those who can suffer the most who will conquer. And that, my dear friends and comrades, is the truth. For when we are imprisoned and defenseless, and yet want to continue to fight for the cause we all believe in our heart and soul to be the true and right cause, then our only weapon is resistance. We resist any attempt made to call our cause criminal. I went on hunger strike, knowing that the weaponry of the hunger strike would hurt nobody other than my own. I knew my family shared my pain. I was saddened by that. It is the most cruel death that any man or woman could inflict upon themselves. And yet, any man can ask, why? At the time, I was confident that my death would do more to smash the British Empire than my release would. And I was right. The hunger strike does not belong solely to the Irish, nor was it fashioned by the Irish. Did not Christ himself fast for 40 days in the desert in preparation for what lay ahead? I say the hunger strike belongs to all those who fight for what is right when their hands are tied and their mouths gagged by the forces of oppression and injustice. There are 22 of us in all from Ireland who fasted until death. Death, a cruel, horrible death that we kept at bay for as long as possible, until in the end it held no fear that we as soldiers could not overcome. Thomas Ashe in 1917. Even with Dr. Kathleen Lynn in attendance, he died after 5 days. He was force-fed by the British. They punctured his lung. Death came quickly. 2 days later, the British conferred political status on all Republican prisoners in Mountjoy. At his graveside, a volley was fired, and Michael Collins, in full uniform, declared that that volley of shots was the only tribute necessary over the grave of a dead Fenian, and I agreed.
If they want to die, then let them. The iron fist is mightier than any weapon. Remember Woodrow Wilson, one of the greatest presidents of America? He came to Dublin in 1919, and he preferred to heed us rather than listen to your babble about Ireland and independence. Yes, 200,000 signatures meant less to him than one British minister's opinion. He wouldn't touch your petition. Yes, we were able to ban the door. If an American president wouldn't listen, then what government would listen to an ungrateful bunch of Irish rebels?
3 of us died in October 1920, all 3 from Cork. Michael Fitzgerald died after 67 days on the 20th, and Joseph Murphy and myself died on the 25th, a couple of hours apart. It was a tough time for Cork, but an even tougher time for our families. People remember my name because at the time I was Lord Mayor of Cork, but I was of no more importance than Mick or Joe, and I was loved no more or less than they. Being Lord Mayor conferred a certain prominence on me, in name only, of course, for we all died willingly for the same cause. I prayed for Mick and Joe, and I know they prayed for me.
Crime is crime is crime. It is not political, because I say so. And I tell you, you will never win a war with this country, because we are too skilled at putting people down and keeping them there. That is our fortitude, our skill at keeping people down.
"1923 was a terrible year for Ireland. We had been killing each other for over a year, and now we were so hopelessly divided we watched as another 3 good men died on hunger strike. The first from Wexford, Joe Whitty. Joe died on September the 2nd. And then 2 more Cork men, Dennis Barry and Andy O'Sullivan, died on the 20th and 22nd. They all died in jails run by our own people, who were these brave men's former comrades.
Divide and conquer. Divide and rule. Divide and make your enemy your tool.
And then the 40s. There were still Republican prisoners, and surprisingly Deb Valera, who was leader of the Fianna Fáil government, refused to grant the prisoners political status. So another 3 good men died. Tony Darcy from Galway, and Jack McNeila, a Mayo man, died in April 1940. And you all know the other fella. He was one of your own. His grave's over there in Milltown. Sean Mackay. Sean died after 5 years of torture in Portlaoise. And on the 16th day without food, he went on thirst strike and died on the 23rd day of his fast. So on the 11th of May 1946, Sean was met by myself and the others and welcomed into the arms of Jesus.
Northern Ireland is as British as Finchley, because I say so. an Armalite in one hand, and a ballot box in the other. Whom do they think they are? Britain? Indeed, it was Frederick the Great who once said, "Diplomacy without arms is like music without instruments." And I agree. In trying times, the truth is that it is our military measures that provide a diplomatic response. And the IRA Sinn Féin thinks this applies to them, but it can't, and it won't, because I say so. This is a British strategy, not an Irish strategy, because I say so.
How sad. Hunger strikes did not end there, and Ireland was still not free. The 1970s saw another 2 brave men die. Michael Gohan in 74 and Frank Stagg in 76. Both of them died alone, far from home, in English jails. Both Mayo men, they were eventually buried together, no thanks to the Fine Gael Labour coalition government that did everything in its power to prevent Frank's body being buried in the Republican plot in Ballina next to his good friend and comrade, as he had expressly wished. They poured concrete into his grave up to the brim. Eventually a tunnel was dug, and Frank's remains were reinterred in the Republican plot. Now I have something to mention. Did you know that the actual tricolour that was draped over Michael's coffin was the same tricolour that was draped over mine? Well, now you know.
No, I did not think of anyone or anything when my own son Mark was lost in the desert. Lost, and without food, and possibly without water. No, as I have said, I did not think that dreadful thought, that maybe this was the gods sending their vengeance on my family. I did not think that because I do not think like that. And anyway, I was never the kind of mother to think such thoughts.
This blanket is my tongue, for it can talk in a way that is wordless. You look at this blanket and you just know what it stands for. When a prisoner was brought to you on a visit, you didn't see the blanket, but you knew it was there and what it stood for. Always lurking in the back of your mind that when the visit was over, the blanket was all that was waiting for him as he left the 30 minutes of half-realities back to the horror of H-block reality. The screws knew what it stood for. That's why they wanted the prisoners to be uniformed, stamped, registered, defeated, crawling for mercy. Their mercy. Nakedness touched and honored truth. There was such beauty in that. To wear the blanket proudly, that was the victory, for they wore it unashamedly. And then the hunger strikes. It was a natural conclusion. The end of a nightmare. and for the 10 brave men, the beginning of a different kind of nightmare. For they did not enter into their fast alone, but brought with them the eternal pain of their families. One by one they went with hope in their heart, and they died with that hope intact. And the hope did not disappoint them, for now at last they were free. Kieran Doherty, Mickey Devine, Francis Hughes, Joe MacDonald, Kevin Lynch, Bobby Sands, Thomas McElwee, Patsy O'Hara, Martin Hertzen, Raymond McCreesh.
"30 years now since they left us, and this we know is true. As their souls passed through old Ireland, their spirits stayed with me and you. And in each morrow's evening, before the break of dawn, we remember all our comrades from IRA to Cumnaman. But we're here tonight to honour those brave men of 81, who for you and I did die in those dark days of 81. Shall my soul pass through old Ireland, pass through Ulster's green, green fields? Shall I see my own dear family as they kneel and pray for me? Father, tell me ere I leave you, for this I pray sincere, will they love and cherish still the ideals I hold so dear? Will you comfort all my comrades? Tell them this from me, that one day our country Ireland from the British shall